As big as a city, the luxury liner Laurentic was built to last forever. She met a premature end, carrying £5 million of gold. Naval divers recovered 99% of the cargo and were actually decorated for the work. It's from here in Lough Swilly that now, 65 years later, the hunt is on in earnest for the remaining 1% of the Laurentic's gold. At today's prices, the gold the Navy failed to recover is valued at £2 million. In bygone years, the Port Salon Hotel was the rambling mansion of a wealthy local family. It's from this jetty every day the salvage crew will operate for the next 5 months, foraging the Atlantic out beyond Fannet Head. It was in these very waters, where the Swilly meets the Atlantic, that 65 years ago German mines rocked the Laurentic. Right now, the sea is still as a mill pond, but it has more treacherous and violent moods. On that fateful night in 1917, 350 of the 500 crew members were drowned. Many of them were washed ashore in lifeboats, frozen solid to the oars. And it's effectively here that the search for the Laurentic's hidden treasure is taking place. Ray Cossum and his Derry-born son Des are spearheading the search for the gold. How did you first become interested in the Laurentic?
Well, Ray, the father, and Eric, the uncle, bought the rights in 1969. And at that time, we'd never really envisaged doing any sort of salvage work, just as a hobby. Then, when gold went through the market roof there a few years ago, it started to look like a viable proposition to go after it. So we hunted out a few salvage companies. As a matter of fact, three different companies had a look at the wreck, and we chose the best one, which seemed to be a group of divers from Cornwall, all professional divers, I may add. Put a good team together, first-class boat, and so we'll be operations will be underway in a few weeks' time, hopefully.
What do you think is down there?
I'll tell you what, it's not a point of thinking. Without a doubt, there's 2 million in gold still there. There's 22 ingots there. If we can't find them, it's just a bad job on our behalf, because they're still there. We've no doubt about that.
You've been down a few times already. What have you seen down there?
Well, she's pretty crushed up at the moment. She's lying on her port side, smashed up. I suppose she's something like would be best described as a kid's toy that somebody's jumped on. Very smashed up. The Navy were working at it for quite a few years, 7 years in fact, using explosives. We've done quite a bit of pulling at it, get a bit of non-ferrous out in the last few years, so you can guess she's really smashed up at the moment. There's no visible signs of a wreck anymore. You go down, maybe you'll see engine room, condensers, stuff like that. Big stuff still in one piece, but it's actually for seeing cabins and things like that, or paint or lifeboats or anything. There's no visible signs of a wreck. It's just like a giant scrapyard spread over a couple of football fields.
The sailors who were working on her back in 1917, the salvage crew, they were working under a very disciplined structure. It's the same thing today in the Navy. But since time began, human nature has allowed greed to be one of the more prevalent, would it be emotions? Do you think that some fella could have knocked off all the gold that's down there on you?
No way on this earth, no way. The setup was such that when the Navy first put the diving team together in 1916, they were an elitist squad, but all their best men from different regiments, different branches of the forces. They've been put together especially to do this at the height of a war, when Britain was dependent on this gold to get back to the government. These were proud men. These were the elite of the Navy, believe me. And apart from all the security regulations which were enforced during the diving, there's no way that stuff could have been taken. Besides, they weren't using sub-aqua scuba gear, as we call it, self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. These were old hard hat diving helmets, the lot compressors. They went straight down, straight up, were checked, sent the stuff up in buckets. They weren't swimming around, weren't free agents like we are.
Finding the actual wreck is a job in itself. The skipper of this boat has developed his own code of signposting.
That's all right. Just take it up for it now.
He gauges his position by angle and distance from particular points on the Fanad and Inishowen peninsulas. On this trip, the Cossums have with them an extra diver, RTE cameraman Peter Dorney. He too has to go through the painstaking preparations.
It's lovely when you get over.
Father Ray is first over. His task is to check we've actually got our bearings right. Underwater time is limited, and in this business you can't afford to make mistakes.
There seems to be very little current actually. I think we're playing more or less on the marker.
You want to get on it? We're off the gold area.
What's the viz like?
Lovely.
Excellent.
When it's confirmed we're in the right place, it's a cause for celebration.
Where are you?
Seatbed. On the engine room. No. Right on the engine, guys, move!
What's the overview now?
We're on the engine room.
Ray's main job is now over. He reports we're directly over the shipwreck.
Right into the engine room.
Right, well,
Beautiful. But you'll have a job, if you swim away from that, you'll have a job finding that boiler and back up again, but you can get picked up around
the
there.
engine room will do this anyway.
Probably.
You'll fill a bit of time on that way.
It's directly beneath us that the wreck of the Laurentic lies. 120 foot down there, the Cossums are convinced they're going to find a fortune to leave them rich men for the rest of their lives. But their search is the diver's equivalent of looking for the proverbial needle in a haystack. It's kind of difficult to equate this mass with the 15,000-ton luxury liner which was the pride and joy of craftsmen when it left Belfast in 1910. The Cossums estimate that brass and copper fittings alone are worth more than £80,000. The scenes are so fascinatingly beautiful you'd be forgiven for getting carried away and just looking at them. But the Cossums have to remember this is a business for them. Somewhere down here is their potential fortune. On the Laurentic's last night in Lough Swilly, lights from its 1,000 portholes shone. It certainly has changed identity since then. As Des Cossum surfaces, he knows that when he comes back this summer, it will be a different matter. He'll bring with him a team of divers, employed to try and fine-comb the wreck, 120 foot below.
Did you get up onto the gold area?
Right beside the gold there. I think that's where he's going now. Fish, lovely. Some fish. Some fish too. Yeah, but see some of the...
Do you leave the markers down for the edge of the gold area, did you?
A lot of lifeboat davits on the big boilers on the side, and we were just on the other side of those. I think he's gone in between them now. Have a look about, see if there's anything funny there. But
Last up is our intrepid cameraman, Peter Dorney. Winded, but not speechless.
And all you can see, the visibility is very good, but you can see a pile of steel lying around the bottom in, to me, almost unrecognisable shapes. It is the engine room, yeah, but other than that...
Is it very big?
Oh, it's vast. It's all over the place. It is. It's a huge junkyard.
How would you fancy the chances of getting 22 bars of gold from it?
I'd rather somebody else than me. Let me put it that way.
The naval salvage team of 1917 brought up a bell and left it in Portsalon Church. It tolls every Sunday for the Laurentic's dead. In a quiet churchyard on the other side of Lough Swilly, the victims are remembered too.
This communal grave in the churchyard at Fawn marks the final resting place for 65 of the crew of the Laurentic. The story about the ship's final voyage is a horrific one. For instance, some of the 350 men who lost their lives were actually washed ashore on the Shetland Isles off the Scottish coast. In 2 weeks' time, the Cossums begin their search for a happy ending to what is otherwise a most horrible tale.